least about the topic of data interoperability. So let me try just to set the tone for what the Commission and DG Move is expecting. I'm here, of course, with Michaela, who already knows a lot more than I do, and apologies in advance that I have to run in a while. But first of all, our ambition for rail at the Commission is very high. That's why we're here with, I think, more than 50 people, the Commissioner and my Director General. We also believe that to be successful, the sector needs to improve and certainly become more efficient. And we do believe that one of the ways that it will do so is by going digital. There are so many areas where we are still manually doing things. One of the examples that strikes me the most is timetabling and how this is an annual, manual and national operation where we need to go digital, European, and be much more flexible. All of this requires IT tools that are being used. We come from meetings after the other talking about ETCS, radio ticketing, communication systems. Our trains and our networks in the future will produce an insurmountable amount of data, much more than, let's say, the systems we now have. And what are we going to do with that data? Will it be, I would call, data hogging, where each operator produces and uses data for its own purpose, or we will be able to share? And clearly the Commission vision is the latter. That's why we talked about common data spaces, where there is a level of trust. There are rules for use of data. There are principles for fair and equitable access of that data, because we all know data is knowledge and knowledge is money. And if you can use and harness the power of data and you can make your operations more efficient, then it has a value. So therefore, our vision is that basic rail data, congestion, speed, things like that, should be a general public good. It should be available to everyone. Should be available to users like Ralph over here. Trying to run freight trains in Europe. You should know. You should know whether there's a problem here or there's a problem there, and who is the cause of the problem, and who needs to do better. Our member states, public authorities, you need to know which operators are not working well, where the problems in the network and all that. So it's a sensitive issue because data is, and it's my data. I don't want to share it, but unless we as a sector as a whole are ready to pool all this information, since it is a network industry, since you can't be a super efficient infrastructure manager and then have a poor operator running, or the other way around. We are efficient together, or we are inefficient together. So this is the vision that I would want to sort of convey, and that's the simple thing to say. Now the hard part is to, of course, break down all the barriers, all the walls, and set common standards so that our systems can talk together. And for that, I trust that I can leave that in your hands because you know how to do it. But let's be ambitious and let's share data. Thank you very much, Chris. Back to you.
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you. I'm unmuting myself now as well, and it's perfectly working. Seems that we're already used in sharing, let's say, minimum the microphone. I think the next target is, as Christian said, sharing data. And we started, I think, Chris, nearly 1 year ago, we said we have to do something. And it was not just the agency, commission, RNE. It was, and we see it now here, nearly the whole sector. It was really something where we have learned in the past that hiding the data is weakening the sector, but it's also weakening every player. So sharing is caring about the sector, let's say it like that. And I believe we'll be super satisfied by the end of the meeting today, because we have, let's say, it has taken time for the second workshop. The first one was in October, make a small recap, and there the sector has given us, I come to that, some really, some questions, some things to solve, and we worked for that. That's why we postponed it once or twice the workshop, and now we having thought things on the way we would like to, that you are challenging us. If this is what you're expecting, is this something where you say we are too slow? We are, let's say, not ambitious enough, or is this something where you say, if you solve that, come on, then it's the right way, it's a good job. Maybe just starting a bit with the workshop we had nearly 1 year ago in Vienna. No, it was also a virtual one, but in this case, we had the pleasure to organize it, as now the agency is doing it today. And we had, I try to share my screen, hopefully it's working. Perfect. And there, on the one side, we had around 150 participants in the net. This was for the first workshop, we were very satisfied. We had a couple of panels, and in general, we were talking about 3 major issues. One was the legal state of play. Is that the first workshop should give a bit of ground. Then how to make the data available. We have linked data approach. We have databases integrated. We say, okay, what would be the best way doing it? And the third one was using the data. So what's then, if we now make them available, who is using them? And we got some quite interesting results. I just picked some highlights out of that. The first one, how can we establish a framework for that? And there we have seen, this is a mixed feeling. We having the commission has to do something together with the agency, and the sector has to do something. So we said, well, okay, it seems to be that if the sector is doing something and we don't have a legal background, it's maybe too less. If the commission and the agency is doing something and the sector is not going on, it's also too less. So it seems to be that in this case, commission, agency and sector have to go in the same direction. And then we had a lot of areas, how can this be done? So how we can make better synergies about all the ERA reference files and so on and so on. And also there we had a mixed feedback, so to say. Yes, the agency can do a lot, but if the sector is not really providing the data in an open way, it's simply too less. So the agency has the mandate, has the obligation, but it's still the sector that the one who is producing the data. And in a lot of cases, it's the infrastructure manager. I'm totally, let's say, aware about this situation, that the data are not making available in the correct sense, but it has to be done together. And finally, we also had an area of how dealing then with the data. So how can be a governance model be done? And I don't want to let's say we just had 150 and a person, 55 responding. So that's why we tried. Also here it was said, okay, agency, super important player. So if we do something and we don't have the legal area with the agency, the commission, it's simply too less. But on the other side, we are coming to a level as regulation is maybe not always flexible and sufficient. And if we are stopping always at the regulation level, that's also too less. So the sector has to come in as well, provide the data there, and also provide solutions. They are not regulated. So this has to go hand in hand. So regulation and sector should be much more in the same, in the same spirit of sharing the data. I think this was the conclusion from the last workshop. And I think now we're having a lot of interesting presentation, discussion, and finally, maybe some offers to the sector. We would like them to ask you, also challenging us again, sufficient, too slow, or if you're going that way, it's fine. Please, giving back to you. And we hope we are not too slow.
Many thanks, Harold. And I think if we can, from the agency perspective, before I come to the slides, Marina, I think I wanted to highlight the fact that we've been piloting this approach, as you mentioned, Harold, on linked data. And we took the issue to our management board, and we're very happy that today Hina can join us. He's our board champion in this area, and I think we're going to have the pleasure of hearing his perspective a little bit on the approach we're taking to data and get his feedback. So I would ask Hina to make his presentation now.
So thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm from the Dutch Ministry of Infrastructure and Water Management. I'm following this issue in the management board of the agency, and I think we are in And at the same time, I saw also in my experience, for example,
Sorry, because the online people are just.
I'm sorry for that.
And no show of slides.
Okay, I will try that as well. Sorry about this. So, in a Groot Dutch ministry, I'm speaking, let's say, from the background of the to follow this issue from the management board of the agency. I saw that the agency has built up many registers, databases, regulations, which is, I think, a big wealth to the whole railway sector already. Let's say in the board, we saw how this can be improved further between the ones who are delivering this data and how the agency is managing the different registers. But at the same time, we see also the sector has. Now I can share this presentation. Oh. How to do that? How can I share this? Okay, Marina will share that one. Okay, great. Yeah. So I have written down a few thoughts. So I come really from the political background, which we are bringing into the management board of the agency, and why we are looking at this point of digitalization, because we expect a lot on this. This was already written down in the declarations on rail freight from Rotterdam Declaration 2016, but also the last declaration from Berlin was very clear on that. And it was also put down in the council conclusion on railways. That was from last year, not 2020, but 21. Why is that? I think we see both in the sector, but also in the administrative part governing the railways, we see this digitalization movement, and we see also a lot of opportunities to share data in a better way. In the first place, administrative savings is what people think about, and I think that is also totally correct. I see, for example, that infrastructure managers are working together in rail freight and setting up their own systems, which are using infrastructure data and which are also used in the registers from the agency. Administrative savings is the first thing, but the more important thing is, in the end, the improving of the quality of the rail services. And I think that is both in rail passengers is an example, for example, on rail ticketing, where also sharing of data is an important issue. But also in the quality of services in freight. And for example, we did in the Rhine-Alpine corridor last year a study on what's called rail collaborative decision making. Well, one thing is clear: this can only work if data is shared more between different stakeholders. So, on what to be done then, I think that Harold summarized this already a bit in the beginning, what we discussed last time, making use of the same data, standardization of data, and also how to access the data. We have to work on those issues. My last slide, what would be my thoughts, how we could follow up to this? I think this the first question is to make these pilots a success, which are done already between ERA, NSA, and infrastructure managers, but also other players, to make those pilots a success, and to look what could be further applications, to have a kind of investigation about this together with the sector. I think that is also very useful. And in the end, I think we need to have some kind of governance between the agency and the sector organizations, how to take this forward. As I've called it here a memorandum. At the moment, this is at the voluntary way, but I think in this memorandum we should write indeed what are the main projects, what are the rules on sharing of data, and what are the commitments on how much resources we have for the projects, etc. And for this, in this way, we could accelerate this project a bit. And of course, there is also a huge role for the Commission, because I believe on access of this data and maybe also standardization, the regulatory framework also needs to be adapted from time to time. And for example, we have the registers, we have the telematics applications, we have the rules on capacity allocation, etc. So there is, I think, also much work to do. But I think to use the momentum to come to a kind of governance between railway sector and the agency between now and the next year, that is for me the most clear objective that we should have in mind. So thank you.
Many thanks, Hina. And I think I won't say much at this point. Many of the colleagues here today, we see each other regularly, and we say the same things to each other at every meeting. But today I'm really pleased to see we have new faces and new names to participate. A little bit what I took away from the first workshop from the audience feedback was, please stop talking about it. Please get on and fix it. And I think that's something we should really focus on. And I think for the objectives today, we hope at the end of the meeting to have a clear understanding of the way forward and maybe some concrete steps that we can take together. So I won't delay that process any longer. And I think the first focus we had was with Ralph Charlie, really on customer needs. I think we can get caught up in the IT and the smart solutions, but Ralph Charlie regularly reminds us that actually it's there for a purpose. So over to you.
Thank you very much, Chris. Welcome to everybody. As Christian said, knowledge is money. And we are all together, whether we are efficient or inefficient, we should share the data, because the needs of the customer is to have the data, not all the data, but at least the data he's concerned with. And the issue is from both sides. One has to share the data and the other has to get access to the data. So my perspective is a perspective of combined transport towards an effective digital transformation in combined transport. Just as a reminder, this is the galaxy. It shows that the operator of the combined transport and the logistics service provider behind and the shipper behind who's paying the whole logistics chain, they have an interest, and there are a lot of them on the market. There are a lot of stakeholders. And when we talk about rail, it's only one part in a logistics chain. And that's why it's so important to look in a transversal mode and a horizontal mode and not silo per silo, because all these modes have to be interconnected. If you look at the combined transport ecosystem and the key stakeholders, you all know this, but I think it's important to write it down, to be aware that we have all these stakeholders and everybody has his place in the chain, but without data, he doesn't know exactly where he stands. And the needs of the customer is not to have all the data of everybody, but to have the data he needs for his own business. Some of the key drivers for digitalization in CT, and I can tell you that a few years ago when I talked to my members, digitalization was not their main topic. Intransparency was sometimes even part of their business model. So I think things have changed a lot. There are new entrants that increase the logistics footprint like Amazon. There are shippers who use advanced software to perform the 3PL's tasks. We have an improved communication information richness with 5G and with Internet of Things. The regulators also push digitization, as we see with Staff TSI, with FT, with the whole project of the Commission on DTLF, with the rail freight corridors, with 10T. So there is a digital market, and the customers, we're talking about the needs of the customers, they have a high expectation towards the reliability and the valid information. So all these drivers will lead to a perfect storm of changes in the combined transport ecosystem in the future, with data as a new oil, as we always say, for the future of the CT ecosystem. This will generate major mental shifts in the industry, but also in the whole logistics and regulatory environment. And we are in the middle of this storm. There's an enhanced digital vision for the combined transport road, rail, but of course it's also valid for all the other modes of transport that can be integrated. What we need is very basic. It's tracking and tracing, it's terminal service and slot booking. So there's a sector-wide aligned process and data standards. And there's an improved digital and physical working environment. And on top of this, supply chain-wide optimized utilization. The CT sector's vision is from a road rail freight transport service provider to go to an integrated collaborative transport service provider for the logistics supply chain. And this is valid for all the stakeholders. This is really about getting access to data and sharing these. The roadmap, which we created some 3 years ago, identifies the needs of the customers. I do not want to go into all the details because it's a complex issue, but every stakeholder has his responsibility, starting with the regulators, with the CT operators and terminals, with the rail system consisting of the infrastructure manager and the RU. There are possible approaches, and of course, we need also some alignments. You can go on one hand side from a total freedom of data. You can go through common standards, but I think it would also be good to go for common platforms. So you can choose the way you want to go forward. We have some digital efforts here. The platform approach is, I think, a very good approach. But in this case, you should not have 20 platforms, one next to the other, but one data hub, one platform where you bring everything together. I know that it's not easy, but the way, I think, is clear, and the need of the customers is also very transparent and clear. We tried with one of the projects, which is called ELETA, to have a successful implementation of this digital roadmap. The project was ELETA, electronic ETA, estimated time of arrival. And only to tell you, at the end of this project, we had the evidence that the accuracy of the algorithm that we developed together was much better than what we ever got from infrastructure managers or I used before. So there are solutions, digital solutions that can be implemented, and RNE is now rolling out the whole system all over Europe, and I think this is very valuable. The other projects, we are also working together with RNE as Digital Train 1.0 and 2.0. These are relevant for combined transport. We did together a lot of extensive studies. We did feasibility studies, and at the end, I think we made a very, very big step forward. Now we are in a new project, which we won, and we started the 1st of September this year. This is called Edict, and Edict is about 3 main modules. And the good news is that these modules are adaptable to all possible platforms in the future. The one module is about what we call ELETA. This is a total quality management system where we say we have to go out of this vicious circle of the KPIs within the rail system between infrastructure managers and railway undertakings. Because if I look as a customer on the rail system, I see infrastructure managers and railway undertakings playing ping pong. It's always a blame and shame game, and the other one is responsible. So it's difficult for me to come to a conclusion. That's why we say, let's be objective. Let's try to really base the decisions on objective reasons for the non-punctualities of the train. And then, of course, with a total quality management system, with a manual and hopefully also a tool, we will have much more transparency here. And then there's still enough time to say who is responsible. But let's go to the real reasons of non-punctuality. The second is how to integrate better the terminals in the chain. So with the tough TSIs, we have integrated the terminals. The terminals are also connected to the TIS now. And in order to implement all this, it's important for the combined transport that the terminals are not left aside, because without terminals, combined transport is not possible. So it's needed to go from one mode to the other. And the role of the terminals will be even more important in the future. The only thing we need is a better density of terminals, but this is then an infrastructure topic. The third topic here is track and tracing for the customers, because the customers also of the CT operators wants to know where the goods are. And here we have a working system based also on a European project some 17 years ago. And it's still working, and it has to be upgraded, has to be enhanced. And I think with the even better track and tracing, the customers will be happier in the future. So this is basically what the customer needs are, Chris, and I give it back to you.
Many thanks, Ralph, Charlie. I think it's interesting to see all the developments you're making and how you're solving these issues. We have a session that follows next, which is looking at other actors in the field who are also supporting railway operations. So I don't know if anybody has a reaction already to what's been just presented, or wants to ask Ralph, Charlie anything, or Harold, I see. Maybe you
not really a reaction. Normally, Charlie is always the one reminding me, saying this at the end as a presentation. Big thanks to the European Commission. All the projects mentioned by Ralph, Charlie are co-financed by you via the issue logbook, via now the new SEFCUL, via the old one. And that's why this cooperation is so important. It's astonishing, but some of the good things the sector is just doing if there's co-financing behind. And always have in mind, by co-financing something, the sector is a minimum taking care about the other 50%. And that's sometimes super important. So thanks for that. Normally, if I'm presenting and I'm forgetting it also sometimes, and Ralph, Charlie always push me. Thanks for supporting these projects.
Many thanks, Harold. I think we can maybe move on then, if there's no one else who wants to intervene. And we start, first of all, I think, with CER. I know you want to make an intervention.
Thank you very much. I will soon actually find out as CI if it was a good idea to put myself between two representatives of the agency and make an intervention on the agency's work. Of course, the data topic is very important for us. It's the RUs and the IMs, and I had to choose two topics. I want to present actually two use cases, and again I had to choose from the fields of interoperability and safety, because there are two use cases that are of utmost importance for us. The first one is safety, of course, with the exchange of safety-related information, because we had a discussion, or we have been discussing this for almost a decade, and we are still on the way to finalizing it with the CSMA SLP. With SIDE, we have done some very good work. At the very beginning, it was very difficult to convince our members, the RUs and the IMs, of this new approach to the exchange of safety-related information, but I think we slowly get there, and we think CSMA SLP is a major milestone. I think we can make a whole session on that, because we have been discussing that for a decade already. But I would like to put the focus on an activity in the field of interoperability. And that is for us the route compatibility assessment. That's something very important for us. You know, with the just to refresh our memories, with the implementation of the fourth rail package's technical pillar, we spent quite some effort on error regulation, interoperability, and safety directive. Then we focused on the Article 21 of the interoperability directive with the vehicle authorization, and then putting a big focus on the practical arrangements for vehicle authorization and its application guide. But there is still this Article 23, that is the use of vehicles, and that leads us to the road compatibility check. And there that was quite tough for us because there we didn't have an application guide. There we didn't have the guidelines how to work with this, how this route compatibility check is supposed to be carried out. Because we have, on the one hand, we have the vehicle data. On the other hand, we have the data for the infrastructure. And now we come already into this data field. For us, it was quite challenging as the railway operating community, how to deal with this route compatibility assessment. I can tell you, I mean, from the CR point of view, we have huge members with huge engineering departments as well, who can easily carry this out, but we have smaller members as well, and we have smaller members in this sector. So that was quite a challenge. And in particular, how to use the information, the requirements from the OPE TSI against the data. And then we have evolved, we have produced a guide how to deal with this. And we are very happy, and that was then the next step, that the agency came with a tool for the route compatibility check. And this is something actually where it is very important that we facilitate this route compatibility check. And that is where we see the future. This is still our dream, that we have complete registers with all the parameters, with all the elements available in RINF and in ERATV. Now I come back to the vehicles and to the infrastructure. And there is an easy tool, that's still my dream. I think it's not going to be in the next years, it's not in the next month. It is a dream where our use can easily make this route compatibility check. And that's why we are very happy that the agency put a lot of work in this. Of course, it's still up to the infrastructure managers, of course, to provide the input to RINF, to provide the respective infrastructure parameters and the information that is needed. But that is where we see the way forward to get away from the manual work we have been doing of this route compatibility check. So manually comparing and matching parameters to a digital solution. That's why we are pretty happy that the agency is doing it. And RINF for us is both the input for the RCC and the route book. And I have to say, although we criticize the agency quite a lot, we're very happy that the agency has been very open in this respect to commonly shape the tools. And this is what we want to continue to shape the tools, to commonly work on the methodology for the registers. And I just want to mention here RINF and ERATV again, but there are other tools and registers as well. It's the OSS, for example, we have been quite intensively shaping. It's the exchange of safety-related information. To make a long story short, for us, these tools are very important, and we believe we haven't been creating it for the sake of creating registers, but now with the implementation of the fourth railway package, we see really how these bits and pieces do all match together, how they work together, and how they can actually facilitate our work as RUs and IMs. We might not yet be there where we want to be one day, but we think we are in a very good way, and that's why we very much support the agency. And we hope that the agency will be supported as well in terms of sufficient budget, in terms of sufficient resources to carry out this work, because we as RUs and IMs, we definitely, and that's what I want to underline, we definitely benefit from that agency's work. And with this, I would like to close.
Thank you, Enno, and thank you for the kind words and the supporting comments about the work of the agency. And of course, we continue to work on those, as you say, to push for the completeness of those registers and to simplify those tools. I think next we move to UIC, and I think here we're going to hear a little bit about what UIC are doing and how they support the operations of rail in this area. I see a question already in the chat referencing what's available at UIC, so it's a perfect introduction.
Very well, thank you very much, and I hope everyone can hear me also remotely, presenting my screen at the same time. So in the next 10 minutes or so, myself, Thibaut Noël, coordinator for DP Rail, that stands for Digital Platform Rail, and my colleague Cecilia Dageron will take you through our concept, our plan, our vision for the RU one-stop shop for operational data. please bear with me. The DP Rail project initiates from Rail Freight Forward. Rail Freight Forward, you should all know, is the coalition of European rail freight companies committed to reduce the negative impact of freight transport on the planet. Out of Rail Freight Forward, there are a number of technological game changers that were identified that will help to achieve the so-called modal shift, so bringing us from around 18% to 30% by 2030. These digital game changers include DAC, digital automated coupling. They include, of course, digital capacity management and others such as autonomous train operations or ERTMS. For us, DP Rail is the foundation. DP Rail is the connective tissue, is the layer that supports all these other initiatives as well. Why? Because digital means data. And for data to flow, you need to have a connective layer in place, and a connective layer that represents the sector that does not just focus on one use case, but that focuses on the key, let's say, manual efforts, the key manual data steps in the process chain. So our vision is clear. By 2025, we want to achieve a seamless data flow in the European rail freight operations through a trusted digital ecosystem connecting the key rail freight partners. Yeah. And we believe that the RUs need to do their homework. The RUs need to come up with a structured and unified approach to make this happen, because obviously we can always point in all different directions and say this needs to happen elsewhere, but I think things can be done on the RU side first. So that is why we have developed a target picture which concludes 7 digital solutions, 7 individual use cases where we believe the maximum gains can be achieved by unlocking that seamless data journey. So what we want to do is break down these operational data silos. We want to make sure that there is a compliant access, so that's tough TSI compliant access for all transportation partners, especially for smaller RUs with little or no IT capabilities. So that's taking away those IT hurdles that exist nowadays to connect, consume, and produce data into a shared ecosystem. And by doing this, of course, ultimately we want to boost and incentivize innovation by using that data for other use cases. So I mentioned it already before. It's about data exchange between companies and across borders, avoiding us to land in a spider web model where everyone needs to build and maintain costly peer-to-peer interfaces. The platform solution is the best way to prevent this. We want to reduce the manual data gathering efforts, which can be enormous for small players if they want to operate a new line and scramble and piece together the necessary pieces of data. This has to stop. We want to make sure that they have that one-stop shop. And by doing that, we want to avoid the hyper-fragmentation in the rail freight data landscape. So we haven't done this on our own. We have received feedback and contributions from many different actors in the sector. One I mentioned before, that's Rail Freight Forward and its members, but of course we've been talking to customers as well. You can see that here in the middle part of our radar, and of course with associations and ecosystem partners to make sure that multimodality and interoperability is a given. So here, this is really an initiative by the RUs for the sector, not to replace any existing platform strategy, but to complement it and to make sure that we have a European layer available to exchange that data. Now, what would it be used for? Well, we have asked these different entities, what are their priorities? What would generate most business impact? And we come up with topics such as digital train operations. So that's the status on delays on the actual position of the train itself. Digital train handover, which is the handover of the train itself, for instance, when crossing a border. The digital consignment nodes, an ETA service, train harmonization service, telematics data sharing, or indeed digital train composition. So these are top use cases identified by the members, by the sector, which have full support and for which we want to start building now. We heard it before. It's time to stop just mentioning the plans, but to start executing them. And today we want to show that we have started on our journey, and that with the help of the people here in the room, we can hopefully scale up and boost this initiative in the coming years. 3 points to be raised as well on this target picture. There are 3 enablers which need to be fulfilled for this to happen. One is trust in the data, trust in the partners and in the platform itself, for it to be fair, to be neutral, and to be properly governed. It needs to be user-centric. It needs to resolve operational needs and resolve issues that exist nowadays on the field, in the sector. And as of course, the overarching topic today, interoperability and plug and play needs to be guaranteed for this to succeed. So I just want to take you through a situation today. Typically, a railway undertaking wants to organize its data and connect, consume, and integrate data in different ways. Well, for that, he or she needs to connect to the infrastructure manager, needs to connect to Wagon Keeper databases, needs to connect to partner RUs and their IT systems, and potentially a list of customers. And this patchwork landscape is, of course, inefficient, very much unstructured, and is very slow to adapt to any changes. So initiatives exist, of course. I mentioned two here, Rail Data and RNE, which are already some way of performing platform services, but this is not enough. This is not a modern integrated approach. And most of all, this is not convenient enough for smaller RUs to consume and contribute data, especially in light of regulations such as TAF, EFTI, or other initiatives such as TTR. And that is why we want to shift from this patchwork landscape to what we have here. It's a hexagon model, but it's essentially structured domain model where the RUs facilitate their communication through gateways in a structured way, clear messages, standardized data models, a common data language, and by having that platform connect to other platforms, and of course are interoperable with those other platforms. So it's a logic where the interfaces are stable, the systems are scalable, and ultimately a stepping stone towards that European mobility data space, an organized way of sharing data within the ecosystem. Just zooming in on one particular part, and you might see it here in the image on the right. We see these gateways, of course, built in an open way so that they are described clearly. People know how to access them. What are the rules to abide by if you want to consume and contribute data through those gateways? And that, of course, using a common language with a relentless focus on data quality, because trust obviously can only happen when the data quality is a given. So these are a couple of elements that we want to bring to the table. And now I will pass on to Cecilia to show with a specific use case, which we have selected, which is Mars, that we have skin in the game, that we're not just talking, but we're also walking, and we are growing this project little by little, and hopefully can scale things up going forward. Cecilia, please. Will you come over here? Or
no, so I do
okay,
here, and then I take over the presentation also. So thank you to both. So yes, we wanted to just give you an overview of what we've done with the Mars, so mobile application for rail freight services. So the Mars application, this is the first result of the Deeper Rail initiatives, and this is enabling partners of smaller RUs to digitalize the first and last mile and transit operations. So today this is done via phone, paper, fax, etc. So what we have done is to creating an application where you can produce wagon status messages and Hermes 30, the handover advice for RUs. And we also here in this application then meeting the TSI requirements on wagon movements, and then we will also then support Hermes 30 2.0 and ECN 1.5 messages. And we have done this first MVP, so the first version of Mars, and we will put this into production now Q4, so in October. And just a very high level on the data model of Mars, but we just want to display the main data objects of the application, saying that we are now connecting the data sources that we already have. So we're using data from the consignment node, from the electronic consignment node, from GCU for technical wagon data, and then from Hermes 30. And with these data sources, we are then creating tasks, etc., for in the Mars application, so that it will be easy to use and also already pre-filled data, so the users doesn't need to fill in data manually as it has been today. We're also following the open data access and the transparency and that's the key principle within the Deeper Rail architecture. And for future versions of Mars, then we plan an integration to the common reference database to use for the locations. And also, since we are connecting several data sources, data quality is the most important here. So we also then plan to do feedback loops regarding this, and also data quality is the core for this application. And just coming to the reference data for Mars. So as RUs, the common reference data database will be a very important source, and population of this database for RU subsidiary location codes will be very important. So currently we don't use this master data, we use it from the rail data, but that's planned for the future. And of course, Mars is done for the first and last mile, so that's why we need the loading points in CRD. Today we can see as RUs, we can see an issue in CRD because any RU can upload subsidiary location codes, meaning that we can have duplication of codes. So this is now something that we are working on with the Take Reference Files group, and then to prevent having double entries and also setting up a clear governance where RUs are requesting a central entity to make sure that there are no doubles. So this is just a very high level glimpse of the Mars application, but we also see here how we can then further enhance this application and connect with the other features or functionalities. So thank you for us. Any questions?
Many thanks, Cecilia.
Thank you.
I see there are some questions in the chat. I think we have one more presentation in this block, and then we can look to see if we can address some of the points raised in the chat.
Thank you.
I think now it's Marina. So yes, for the presentation.
Yeah, I don't know. Hi everyone. Is it? Well, since we are becoming digital, I would like to share the presentation digitally speaking also. Yeah, back to CR comment on route compatibility check and route book. The agency faced our first interoperable data problem a couple of years ago when we needed to develop a route compatibility check based on two different data sets, data stores completely detached. And then at that time, we decided to reuse the EC initiative to reinforce the public sector digitalization, and we follow the Digital Europe program and the same actors that today they are building the mobility data space for procurement have been working with us during the last 2 years. So what we have done basically was to transform the application guides from RINF and ERATV, the legal documents, into a core vocabulary reusable and that follows the FAIR principles. Everything in the presentation is linkable. If you click in the link to FAIR principles, you can see what we mean by FAIR is that every data set in our data store have a unique global and persistent identifiers, like a link that is managed by the publication office. So all the data that comes from the IMs nowadays, a track becomes a digital object, is what we understand and Commission understand by digitalization when you associate a link to that data set. And the objective, of course, for principle is that they need to use open standard. They need to be the way that a computer with an internet connectivity may access this, at least the metadata. And it's not that we are doing this approach from nowhere. It's Digital Logistic Transfer Forum. It's also, as you can probably see in the screen, are using also digital object identifiers, URIs, for the transport. They are talking also link data, the same as Europe's Rail with all those interoperable data projects, and also with even the pharmaceutical industry. Everyone is linking their data sets using common web browsers too. So the solution to our challenge of linking to register was, as I mentioned before, using the semantic interoperability. And we annotate every table in the original data source with a link that is provided and maintained by publication office. So, which are the advantages of this is that we describe the data in an homogeneous way and is findable and reusable by other information systems, machines included. If you want to go to the vocabulary that is currently in our website, you can go to ERA Knowledge Hub and link from there the core vocabulary and the taxonomy, and you will find a conceptual model. You will find that we have gone or expanded the implementation layer enriched with a topologic layer. So every track now has also the information of which one is the next or following track, and the navigability. And one thing that is important is the use of control vocabulary. In the first workshop, there was William from Publication Office who explained to us the difference between reference data, control vocabulary, taxonomies. So, well, here what we can see is that and the industry, the sector can reuse is the definitions in application guide of RINF and ERATV are linked to the values that are currently in the register or and defined as values to be selected in the tool. So these are, for example, a case for the energy supply systems in RINF. So what we have done currently, and if you can click there, you will also see is that from Google, you go to Wikipedia, Wikidata, and then you end up in the ERA Knowledge Graph. I know. Yeah, when you see then directly from the Wikidata, we are in Wikidata, you click and you enter into the knowledge graph, and you can see information about this station, even the information, all the information about the track and the gauging profile and everything. So all the technical specification from RINF accessible. So that's what we are meaning by accessible and interoperable and fair principles. So currently we are receiving information from the different IMs, 26 EU countries, and transforming it, mapping it, annotating as using that core vocabulary into a knowledge graph. And this application, this knowledge graph is being hosted in the European data platform and managed and governed by is hosted there in a virtuoso knowledge graph and using tools for collaborative reference data management. Currently, it's worthy to mention that we have prepared the data provision to 10T platform to inspire. The queries are ready and available in our website. And we are also, the data from RINF is also being used by DG Region. And there are also currently, just one second, an API providing data to RNE Europe and other actors. I would like also to share with you the link to our latest development, that is in reuse of the include the RML data from Wagon into the knowledge graph. This is still in test, but it's a successful test, and this will enrich the routing within, enrich the accuracy of the routing algorithm. And well, today RINF is a cloud service, as I mentioned, in production at the EU data platform. There is 0 dependencies with GIS proprietary software. You can this approach has entitled us to develop new queries on demand. And you can find the root compatibility check in our website. You can also, from the website and from the root compatibility, link to the search form. And as I mentioned before, there are a set of group of actors consuming the RINF data, making use of the API. This is the new release that we are planning for the upcoming week. On the next working party is the new phase with of the root compatibility check, and the good part is that even the checks are linkable. The root and the vehicle end up being a permalink. And that's all what we wanted to share. Any question is welcome.
Many thanks, Marina. Just I see a comment from Frank on in the chat on root compatibility check, and I think some of us as engineers have scars from doing root compatibility check in former careers. It's clearly we're not at the stage yet where you can just press the button and you get the answer you can rely on fully. There are in the infrastructure data there is missing data in some countries. There is data where it seems to be quite old. And this is something that Harold and I have been discussing. You know, how can we work together to encourage the completion of that data to enhance the tool? Other developments I think that we can see is that in the RINF itself, we foresee the possibility to date stamp so that you can actually put in planned engineering works to see what that would look like and the changes that would bring. And I think the other element is working with infrastructure managers to understand how they decide on particular parameters. So we know that in some cases they declare a certain gauge on a line, but in practice there are vehicles with a bigger gauge operating over those lines, and we need to understand how we can reflect that and get a more accurate picture. And we also need to, I think, address or understand the issues from infrastructure managers that have reluctance to share data and concerns about the use of that data. You know, to what extent do they warrant that data, and people can just rely on it. So there is, I think, more to do on that. The other issue, I think, is that on the vehicle side, we know that in the type vehicle register, we still have a degree of data that's called uncoded restrictions, and it's a bit of a mine. You know, if you look at that data, if you look in ERATV, you will see it's a mixture sometimes of what appear to be operational rules and also some data which affects root compatibility, which is not picked up by the tool because it's a free text narrative. So there is more to do for sure in refining both of those tools. But for us, the critical thing was, as Marina showed, that by transforming it into a knowledge graph, we find it much easier to adapt it, to change it, to evolve it than we found previously in a traditional database, when I think it's fair to say our databases were built before the first iPhone. So, and they've not evolved at the same rate for sure. So there's a little bit more to do there. But I don't know if there are other questions that we've missed for the group. Thanks to UIC colleagues for helping by answering questions in the chat. That's super helpful. So thank you for that. I'm conscious of time, and I think the next block we have some more exciting presentations. One of the things that we were hoping to see was that as data becomes open, we see new innovation, new businesses building on that and making use of that. And I think we see in the next block some interesting examples. So I think maybe we can move directly to the next session. I think we have RSRD squared first. I don't know if you want to. Yeah, great.
So thank you very much for the word. Marina asked me to show you our contribution as Wagon Keeper community to the digitalization of the sector. And therefore, we would like to present today the RSRD Square solution, which is already in place for almost 10 years. Most of you are asking yourself, how do you get good quality Wagon data? It's very easy because it's available for almost 50 years. Just go to the Wagon and write it down. Just be careful that you write it correctly down and that do not mix anything up or forget something. You see, the problem is that the data is available, but not digitally available. And if you would like to build your processes on this data, it's very difficult to get it. Yeah. So in the past, the people were really walking to the wagons, writing it down, going back to the office, putting the information in their own IT system. So that sounds not very efficient. Yeah. The same for customers. Yeah. How do they get the information about their rented wagons? They get Excel lists from the wagon keepers, and then they put it manually into their own IT system. Yeah. So it's obvious that there should be a better solution for that. And that's the RSRD Square system, which is a non-for-profit organization built by the Wagon Keepers and the Wagon Keeper Association, UIP. And that hopefully solves that problem. It is a central cloud-based database. In the database, we have around about 222,000 wagons registered actually, and it's getting more and more. We store around about 140 data elements for each of these 2,220 wagons. For 140 wagon elements. So it's more than it's written on the wagon. It's information regarding the registration, authorization of the wagon, as well as technical parameters of the wagon. At the moment, roundabout or more than 250 companies using the system. Some of them already have system interfaces, APIs, to get the data directly into their own IT systems. Also, most of the wagon keepers using the system, we have roundabout 86 wagon keepers using RSRD Square. Most of them also have implemented system interfaces so that the update of the data is done electronically in the background. So no one needs to type in data in the system. We have more than 900 registered users, yeah, using this data manually or via interface. And just that you have a feeling how this data is requested by the sector, more than 15 million queries per month we have at the moment in the system. By railway undertakings, by workshops, by safety authorities, by infrastructure managers, or by any other customers. We also have interfaces to other systems. So for instance, we are feeding with the RSRD Square other IT systems, like for instance, the silent wagon database, which is a database to register silent wagons. Yeah, so the infrastructure managers checking if a wagon is silent based on that silent wagon database we are feeding, as well as the GCU broker, which is a system of railway undertakings and wagon keepers, where you also can check who belongs or which wagon belongs to which wagon keeper. We are also automatically feeding the system. So no keeper needs to feed the same data into different or into several systems. What are the main benefits for companies providing data or querying data? The data access is free of charge, and we had already talked about that issue beforehand. We think that it makes sense to provide the data on a free of charge basis that everyone can use it. We use a standardized data format. We are part of the TAF TSI world, and our data is available in the TAF TSI format. The access, or the good thing is, the TAF TSI is mainly machine-to-machine communication. But as you said, there are also small size companies, railway undertakings, also wagon keepers. How do they access the data or systems to provide the data? Therefore, RSRD allows to access via system interface as well as via web portal, or for instance, a data export, Excel, CSV, whatever. The system is individual and role-based, so every keeper can decide who should have access to the data, because the system is not only limited to railway undertakings as a target group. As I said, also customers, lessees, workshops, they also are allowed to access the data. As I said, we feed other systems. Also, a benefit is one upload, all stakeholders are served, which is also beneficial. In the past, the wagon keeper has to provide these Excel lists with the data to numerous other companies. Yeah. Now they just provide it in one system and open the access, and everyone can access then the data. Last but not least, we also added documents, manuals, and data sheets. Yeah. So it's not only the data itself. You can also upload manuals, how to operate a wagon, how to maintain a wagon, or whatever you require. It's possible also to add this kind of information. So that's it, 5 minutes. I hope you are interested in the system. As I said, it's free of charge, and it might help the sector to become a little bit more digital. So start digitize your business today with the help of the RSRD Square system. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. And it takes me back. I can remember walking up yards, writing down vehicle numbers and in a book, and then walking back to the office. So it's I confirm that's a real example. So but it's good to see the developments, and a very interesting presentation. Thank you. I think we move, if we can, onto our next presentation, RailViz, which is something we came across recently and looked like an exciting example of developments in this area. So if I can ask colleagues from RailViz to present.
Okay, so once again for our audience online, so my name is Sirat Klimanek, coming from Prague. We developed a booking platform for sharing of free capacities of railway assets, locomotives, wagons, and locomotive routes. Our platform started in 2020, where we became from the idea existing product. And nowadays exists railviz.com. Railviz means Rail Vision. It has already many solutions for railway industry. Currently, the system has 7 basic functionalities. Our customers are railway companies, railway carriers, railway forwarders, industrial companies, and railway producers, and many more. And we are, as I said, sharing available locomotives and wagons. So regarding rental and leasing, any company can offer the free capacity on the market, and our system connects this offer with all of the players on the European market who can use this free capacity and immediately book it through our system. This is regarding locomotives, wagons, also personal wagons, not only cargo wagons. And the same we are doing for sale and purchase. So companies can sell their locomotives, their old wagons to the new markets that they don't know yet or they would like to be offered. And recently we have a new functionality, which is sharing of locomotive route. That means that if the locomotive is running empty from point A to point B, let's say from Hamburg to Munich, any other railway company can join this route and put their locomotive on this used route, and they can save money together or make extra profits together. So it's creating effectivity, especially in these hard days when the energy costs are going so high. I believe this is one of the solutions that can save a lot of money to railway undertakings, and railway industry can be more competitive against other transport modes. The same is valid for sharing of the free capacities of wagons and locomotives. Thanks to our system, the wagon availability or locomotive availability is visible to all of the players on the market. They are getting new opportunities, new business, and they are more competitive thanks to this. We are already active all around Europe. So we have companies and members from almost each country in European Union and outside. We believe that this is really the point which is missing on the market, that all of the railway players are speaking together in the same language. Our system is already transferred into many languages. We have not only English, we have German, we have Czech, we have Polish. We are just implementing French and Italian. So the communication can be also better. I'm writing to some other railway undertaking in my domestic language. He gets the message in his own domestic language, which is also quite a barrier nowadays. You know, a lot of dispatchers, a lot of operational people speak only one language. So we are also putting the languages together, so it's translated and online very fast. As this workshop is dedicated for the data transfer and how to make it effective, I edit also some slides on this topic so you can understand how our system is working. So if any railway company has a free capacity of locomotive or wagon, they can manually put very fast an offer to the system. In the same time, this offer is reaching all of the other railway players that can have interest in this asset, and they are checking each offer. They get this offer to their email address, but also they are in the system. So there is a possibility to manually put the information about the free capacity, but also we are motivating all of the companies to import all of their data already through their database of all of the assets. Nowadays, it can work through their Excel data sheet, which they fulfill, and they can put all of the wagons or all of the locomotives into the system, and then they are just showing if the wagon is available or if it's running in the moment, and if it's one downloaded already into the system, it's saved, and the customers can only change the date of availability. They can also share the future availability of the wagon or locomotive. So now I know already that in 3 months, for example, my locomotive will be not used, or my wagon. So already now I can inform the market that in 3 months there will be free capacity, and the other players on the market can already now plan their future possibilities, which was not existing until now. So here you can see we have a united Excel template that can be fulfilled and put into the system. And once it's uploaded, I'm just checking if the wagon or locomotive is available or not. And I can do an offer to the market in 3 seconds. Here, I wanted to show that each offer that is put on the market, the companies can share their documentation. So there are pictures of the wagons, there are technical documents of the wagons, there are contracts or general conditions connected to this offer. So the customer can immediately see all of the details and can react on it very fast. Of course, we are as well doing it and also speaking with many clients to connect our system with their software So we are trying to create API connection with the company's internal software. And there is a big interest. We are speaking currently with many companies to make an interface between their software and our booking platform, so their assets can be immediately offered to the market. Just to show you how it works, the customer can send the offer, puts all of the details into the formular. The offer is sent, it goes to the whole market, and it reaches all of the interested companies in one time. So that means it's a substitute for current communication, which is done per telephone, per email. It's very stressful. Everything is done in the last minute. Nobody knows if there is some availability of the Wagon or Locomotive in the system. Everything is very transparent and reaches the whole market potential in a few seconds, in a few clicks. The same works if I'm requesting something. So if I don't find something that I need, I'm requesting some Wagon that I need for my business. I request Locomotive for my business. I send a request, and this request in the same logic reaches the whole European market, and I can get the valuable offer from many different players, and I can choose what is the best for me. Here you can see we have a database of all of the companies. All of these companies have a profile page where all of the services are listed. So our system is logically finding the right companies for the offers or the requests. And that's how we connect the data together. So the request or the offer is going to not only to the right companies, but also to the right contacts in the company. So the right responsible person in, for example, Wagon fleet department receives this request for a Wagon rental. The same for example, Locomotive department, and so on and so on. So we are also making it logical that not only the right companies are getting the information, but the right persons inside of the companies. And once the offer is sent, the customer gets many requests and can choose what is the best. We have already more than 350 member companies that are using our system. We have, this is an old presentation. We have currently more than 800 published offers on the platform, and we have around 10 transactions per day on the platform. So we already help many players to get the right wagons, to get the locomotives. Nowadays, for example, there was a crisis with grain wagons. We helped a lot of companies to find the right grain wagons for current grain exports from Ukraine. The same for coal wagons and so on. So we are trying to make the railway market effective. Just as a last addition to my presentation, we are adding new functionalities. Nowadays, it's only about asset availability for sale, for rental. Also the locomotive routes. We are adding also availability of the repair workshops. We are adding also possibility to request the transport prices by the companies. Also sharing of the infrastructure routes, and so on and so on. Thank you very much. That was I already exaggerated to the 5 minutes. So thank you all for your attention, and I would like to invite you to our platform.
Many thanks. I'm conscious that we will be kicked out of the room when we reach our end time. So I'm going to move quickly on to our last presentation in this group from Quebec. I think it's important. It's intermodal, as I understand, and that's I think it's important to remember that goods don't just stay on rail, but they have to cross into other modes. So if I can ask you to give your presentation. Yes.
I activate also my microphone just to be on the safe side. Okay, good afternoon. My name is Aldo Puglisi, and I'm responsible for digitalization at UPAC, and also co-director of DXI, Data Exchange Intermodal, which is a new integrated data hub to allow the ADI data exchange in the intermodal sector. basically, the data hub is a central place where we allow the exchange machine to machine for all the actors in the intermodal chain, like the logistics service providers, the intermodal operator, the terminal, and also the RU. The hub is a result of a project, KFI 4.0, that we implemented in a consortium in Germany with all European partners in the intermodal market. And the objective was to set up a way to exchange data in a standard way across the chain. And let's say the idea was to work with standards and to have a simple way to interact each other across the flow. The partners that joined this consortium at the time were from all the different actors, from logistics service provider, operator like UPAC and Combifair, railway undertaking like DB, SBB, and Locomotion, and also some intermodal terminals. So the idea was to cover all the different requirements and try to understand how we can simplify this data exchange. So what do we provide and offer on this platform? So this platform is like a single place where we can exchange predefined messages related to a single shipment travel. Like, for example, a booking from the logistics service provider to the intermodal operator, to the gate in at the departure terminal, the train loaded, the train departure, train arrival, the estimated time of pickup, and then also the timetable. The idea is to use a standard that has been developed in the market, which is called Edict, which is a set of standard messages which allow all the players to communicate in the same way. So to simplify even more the concept, is like a postmaster where everybody can send a letter, which is the message with the sender and the recipient to the hub, and the hub is simply routing the message to the recipient. This is also allowing a very strong security concept where only who is mentioned in the recipient in the letter, let's say, is allowed to receive the data. Because of course, considering that is a European and open platform, we want to be sure that only who is allowed to receive the data is receiving the data, and of course, avoiding at the same time to create very complex security logic on the hub, which are not only complicated to implement, but also to maintain over the time. Okay, simple schema that was also shown before. I hope that you can see, but basically from the beginning of an intermodal shipment, let's say from the sender, we have all the different events in the intermodal where we start from the first terminal or the first point in the process that we then we run the train and we have all the relevant transit event down to the destination. And of course, the idea is to include also some special messages which are related to the forecast, like the estimated time of pickup, which is when the shipment will be available at destination for the logistics service provider. So in the idea is to provide a simple way for all partners to share data across the platform and to focus on their own business instead of implementing single ADI interfaces for all the different channels of communication. As you can see, it's a kind of schematic logic to show that we have at the bottom all the different actors sending data according to the relevant position in the supply chain. The hub is, let's say, managing and rerouting this data and also providing the data to the relevant recipient of the chain in a standard way by using EDGS messages. It's clear that it was an idea started 3 years ago, and now we are in a phase where Q1 next year we go to production, meaning the XI company has been founded recently, and the productive environment will be ready in Q1 2023. And as I say, is an open platform, which is that hopefully, let's say, joined by many users, and is open to everyone. If you are interested, we are of course very open to discuss and to provide more details about what can be done with this data hub. I don't know if there is any question, or I was quite fast to stay in the 5 minutes. I hope you appreciate it.
Many thanks, and thank you for flying through that. And I'm conscious that we're in the final stages of the session we've had today. We were quite ambitious about the amount of ground we would try and cover. So I will be looking to Harold and Michaela from the Commission to see how we pull this together and what we can draw from today's sessions. Just a couple of slides from my side. Just where does the agency see it, and a little bit our background, our vision, and I think I would just share maybe even only this slide. So certainly for our management board recently, we adopted a strategy. Need to go back to the start. I think go back up. Yeah. So we had some core principles. I think there's a lot of discussion in the meetings about people being ambivalent about which particular solution, and we are also ambivalent about the tool, but we have provided the tool meets some core principles. And for us, the first one is that it should be self-describing and machine readable to get out of this kind of manual cross-exchange or locking us into proprietary systems, which then get super expensive to change. Findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable, and this is in line with the European Commission strategy for data going forward. And for us, that's super important. I watched a presentation. I think it was from Roche Pharmaceutical, who they made the point that if you've got one of those drawers at home where you just put all the bits and pieces and keys and things you can't find, technically anything in that drawer is findable, but that's not what we mean when we say that. We mean, findable in a smart way, and particularly reusable and interoperable. That's for us an essential element. Thanks, Marina. Then we have this idea of once only single source of truth. Even in our own registers within a small agency, we have obligations on parties to provide similar data into different tools, and that for us seems to be something we need to get rid of. And so for lots of our registers, we have ambitions, including for the one-stop shop, where we have applications for authorizations. We already have vehicle data, we have company data. We want to be able to use that and to reduce the burden on applicants and industry. And then the only other element we've got is, of course, secure. And I think, Ralph Charlie made the point that we don't need to know everybody's data, but we need to know the data we need to know. And so we need a discussion, I think, on what data is really commercially sensitive or private and what data is actually open. And so for us, that's quite an important discussion to have, and to not be too restrictive on that, but to design but to limit the access at the level of the data layer. So I think with those in mind, I think the agency wants to remain quite open. We believe that, Amazon, Netflix, IKEA are right, that knowledge graphs are the way to go, and we're also going in that direction. But I think in terms of the areas that we want to tackle, that those principles are for us the guiding element. And in particular, we look forward to the development of the EU data mobility data space, to really share that. And we've seen, I think, today lots of the work you're doing, lots of the innovations you're doing, which are super exciting to see. And we think that's a good way forward for the future. I'm going to pass to Harold, and we've covered much more than infrastructure on this one, but if you could share your thoughts from RNE.
Thank you very much. And we have taken, let's say, especially the points from the last workshop very much into account. And we had a lot of discussion with, especially with you, Chris, with the agency, with all the partners. And we trying to not really sum it up, but saying the infrastructure manager point of view. Why infrastructure manager? We had discussion in the RNE managing board, and this should also go to the RNE General Assembly to say, yes, that's a vision of the infrastructure we would like to achieve together, and we are seeing us just as a part of the sector. So we have a proposal for a couple of partnerships today. We would like to take in place. We are not boring you now with our key principles about the strategy. This is in the annex, so please, you can check them. We would like to go a bit more to the way, and still from the IM point of view, please forgive us if you're not having the Wagon keeper and all this in, but I think this is what you're requiring finally to be successful, and there the IMs have a special position, seems to be. We see that we're having different, let's say, areas, layers. We don't want to say now again, as let's say, silos, areas. And one is really the infrastructure data, the ground topology data. And there we have a lot of initiatives. And we have, I put now the RINF in. Last time the RINF was not in. I was not tough enough to put it in, but I think we can add, the RINF is an important part here. We have the rail facility portal. We're having all these tough TSI issues. We have the custom information platform. We have finally the network statement in as well. So we have to see this. We see that is one point where we have to cooperate in a way to provide this in a good way to the sector, to all partners, that this is not just as IMs, but as a sector. And I think maybe IMs, agency, UIR with the first and last mile and all these partners together. Based on that, based on the same topology, all should be able to make their own application. So they should be open, they should be transparent. If this is a knowledge graph, honestly, I don't care. It has to be open. What I've learned in the last 25 years being an IT engineer, it will change. And maybe in 5 years we're sitting together and it's called different. It has to be open and clear. Based on that, IMs would like to define the capacity. We are knowing positive capacity, negative capacity. We know the timetable redesign. We know digital capacity management. That's our next step. Based on the capacity available, hopefully short notice, we would like to support this path requesting phase. We all know this annual timetable. We know that this was defined before I was born even, so it seems to be a bit outdated. There we would like to go now also with this TTR project on short-term talk. And then, yeah, the train shall run. And we should have on the same infrastructure we have defined, on the same points we have defined in RINF, in CRD, they should just run, and we should have online information about the train, about the wagon, about the dangerous goods, about ETA, about all this kind of daily timetable. And that's our three, let's say, building blocks we have defined, even in Prime, together with the Commission. I would say that's our major building blocks we would like to do. And by having that, I'm also skipping that slide a bit because it's more or less, let's say, redundant what I've said. We are coming to we call them non-personal railway data. We know we have a lot about GDPR. We would like to keep this a bit out, really about the data. We have infrastructure data, capacity management data, operational data, and there we see a big, let's say, connection to the data spaces built up by the Commission. I think this is super important. And for sure, we have then how we can access them. Also about the technology, how to access them. And having said that, we tried to cluster them in a way saying what sort of data we are talking about, really just super high level here. Infrastructure data, so infrastructure topology data, they have to be there first, last mile with all switches, electrification, with all these issues. This is something which should be there, but we don't have it. Then we say access regulations. We try to summarize this a bit. We see here, yes, RINF, tough TSI. We see also what we're having in rail facility portal about, let's say, first and last mile, and open. Super important. We see them open for everybody. So not just for the rail sector. If you would like to make, I don't know, Google, I don't know, I don't care. That has to be open. This data should be available. Partnerships, ERA. I think we are quite close, and maybe at the end of the meeting we can have something like a that we're working on a partnership. You're being commissioned because you're finally laying the ground, and for sure IAMs are used, put UAR in for the first and last mile, the terminals and so on. And long term, you'll be mobility data space. I think this is maybe sometimes we can work together and putting in finally in a reasonable time. We don't have too long time from my point of view. We are coming to a topic which is super discussed already. This is the timetable redesign. As we have really a lot of support here, we don't see action of cooperation, not the need of, we see a big need of cooperation, but not, let's say, pushing this too much because it's already so much supported by the Commission, by the IUs, by the IAMs, by the Ministry. So that's why a bit passing that super important matter today. Sorry for that. It's one of the most important issues. We thank you to SERA. They've sent a letter to the Commissioner, also supporting the legal framework for that finally, but it's not the core business of today's meeting. In general, it's one of our core business. And then digital train information, everything which is related to daily timetable. What you're talking before. You need one platform where we have all together, starting from the daily timetable, starting from the train run, even GPS in the future. There are a lot of pilots with the ETA, Wagon information, container information, getting the GP locomotion information. Then we can make a mileage information for the wagon keepers. I think they would give us, let's say, 1 or 2 beers if we can provide this to them. And all these issues, if they're super connected, all on the same infrastructure. And we see here 2 partnerships we would like to start a bit also today, as we have started. One is with the European Railway Agency for the infrastructure data. And what we see here at the moment, we having, let's say, at the moment, it seems we have 2 key players. We have the agency with RINF data, with providing all this functionality and with this super important, let's say, support. We're having also the CAD for tough and tough TSI. We have in the customer information platform, we have the rail facility portal and a lot of other issues. And even they are not in line. Even the RINF and these issues are not in line. So we see that we have challenges. So we have redundancy, even for the IAMs, providing different systems, sometimes from different departments with different information. So this is something I think we have to sit together, we have to work together, even country per country together, the agency, maybe supporting by RNE, most likely, and with the IAMs going in the day. This would also, let's say, reduce the workload for all of us. Finally, it's a win-win-win situation. We have less work and also have, let's say, a better outcome as we have at the moment. And that's something what we're requiring also if we would like to make a short-term pass request, if we would like to make capacity and TCR available finally. So we have a bit of a vision here, and I know that it's a bit shared already with the agency, and we have to find a way doing that. At the moment, we are inside of the IAMs trying to, let's say, merge all the applications with infrastructure data. They are under the focus of the IAMs at the moment, more or less RNE. This is the applications I've seen before. We're already trying to mix them with the RINF as much as anyhow possible. Why are we not doing this completely? It's simple. Some countries have implemented the RINF and the tough TSI in a different way. So we simply are not able doing that. So in these countries, it will be that the data are not one-to-one synchronized in the beginning. But you see the final picture. We would like to have, we call it RINF with together, one data platform, one open data space, mobility data space for this kind of data, together with the agency. This is one part we would like to support very much, and I believe everybody of you would support this because finally you're just suffering if you get the different information. That's one part, and the benefits, I think they're so obviously, but nevertheless, we added them in here. Yes, avoid frustration that they're not available, that the data are not available in the necessary quality. Also, I don't want to say now RINF for RNE. I think we have not a single place where we have them in the quality we're requiring, and we need this high quality for all the other issues. We would like to reduce also the operational costs. Super easy, feeding one system, it's easier than feeding 7 systems or 5 systems in a different way, and they should be open that all the others can make a business case out of it. So that's the one part. We would like, let's say, to start now, and I think, as we said, we have something like a 1-year plan that this comes also. We have learned that some methodologies are maybe not sufficient. It should be more than a memorandum of understanding. It should really be a big work of cooperation. I think this is something we would like to work to. And before you're passing to you, I see the same also strongly with rail freight forward and with ULC. Please don't develop already existing functionalities. Please don't. We have done this so many times in the sector. Please don't do it. Please don't do it. Take already what's here. And even the RNE managing board has agreed. We would even offer you a co-ownership in the TIS area that we are implementing together one common maybe data space for exactly this kind of data. This is proposed to the RNEGA. Most likely they will do it, and with okay, so then with the rest of the ULC team, this is something where I believe if we have one single place where we have all this Wagon-related data, finally including the dangerous goods and everything, regulated by tough and tough TSI, this is something which would be super important for the train pass based on tough TSI, what we're having, including the RINF data that trains are running. This is a bit the two scenarios we said we would like to highlight today. The rest of the presentation is more or less quite clear that we have not redundancy, we're having areas with a high need for cooperation in this regard. We just listed them. And with that, I would like to thank all of you for listening to me. Would like to hand over back to Chris.
Many thanks, Harold, and for that passionate proposal. And I confirm, of course, we want to work together. I think we all want the same. We want a successful railway sector, and I think that's important that we find a way to deliver those solutions. We have one speaker left. I think Harold made the point early on in the session that thanking the Commission because they were paying for so much of this, and of course at the agency we also need to thank the Commission for paying for our services and providing the funding. And it's only then appropriate that we give the last word to Michaela from the European Commission to make the final remarks for today.
Yeah, the Commission is black. It's not a good sign, but it's a long time that I heard this sort of very motivated speeches, and I think this is actually mirroring exactly what we expect from digitalization. And I think we in the Commission, we expect even more, because what is digitalization? Putting things into data means I have a high quality project which is harmonized, which can be an enabler for further developments. So we're not digitalizing just to be happy for digitalization and more connection, but we also need the digitalization to go back and harmonize our operations actually. When I see how difficult it is, and thank you very much for this beautiful roadshow on all the applications and everything that is in your minds and that you want to give to the rail system. But to go now this first step and say, we will have a harmonized infrastructure data that is reliable, on which you can build, on which all the commercial application can be built, but also the safety applications. And I think like in route compatibility checks, we're in a safety environment, how to run trains safely. This is really the way to go forward. And when we digitalize data, we need to code data, and coding of data, when you take information and want to put it in a digital environment, you realize, but the information is not 100% clear. I need to harmonize what I actually want to deliver in the rail system. So we are very much looking forward to this really hands-on cooperation. I'm happy that we move from a database to knowledge graphs. So again, like sometimes in railways we do from, I call it the Middle Ages, it's not that long ago, but into a brighter future, to use modern data exchanges to make data available so that commercial applications can be built upon. I think this is our, like we have an infrastructure manager, we have an infrastructure network. It's paid by the public. The same goes for the data. We cannot sort of offer the infrastructure without allowing an open access data for use and for commercial use afterwards. I think I managed a bit. There will be a good balance to be made between which parts are, so to say, the common good, which parts are the commercial for commercial use. But in discussing and in having the agency and DIMs there working for the benefit of everybody in the rail system, I think we can bring things forward, and we should really do it quickly. We need to overcome our fear in the rail sector. Let's do it slowly. Let's wait for somebody else confirming that we're doing it well, that we're doing safe. I think it is us, IMs, governance, public mediators like the agency, RNE, to take this forward and find a solution for safe operations, for business cases, and to hand back a product to everybody here so that the rail system as such can benefit from it. Sorry, now I got also very emotional on this. I think it's the day of rail emotions. Please come with us on this journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Michaela. And I also want then just to thank all of you here in the room and those speakers who put the effort in and the time and made themselves available to share what they're doing. I really appreciate those presentations, and also for the people who joined externally. It was good to see so many people participating and listening. It was too short a time for everything we need to discuss, but I hope it won't be the last discussion we have, and I look forward to good collaboration with all of you on this topic, and just to thank you, and those of you who are here, to wish you a good rest of InnoTrans, and have a good rest of the day. Thank you very much.